In the 1960s, many believed the year 2000 would shine with glass towers, flying cars, and colonies on the moon. Magazines showed families living under giant transparent domes, eating synthetic meals delivered by machines. Yet when the millennium came, the world looked different. We had the internet, pocket-sized computers, and global communication networks. The dreams of the space age faded, replaced by a quieter revolution of information. This history matters because today, as we look to the year 2100, we must accept the same uncertainty. What feels inevitable now, whether it is climate collapse, robot cities, or medical immortality, may vanish in a decade. New discoveries, new crises, and new ideas will reshape the world in ways we cannot yet imagine. Still, history, science, and imagination give us clues. Philosophers, scientists, and storytellers have long speculated about the futures we may face. From utopias of abundance to dystopias of collapse, each possibility holds lessons. One of the most hopeful visions of the year 2100 is the idea of abundance. A future where the old human struggles, food, water, shelter, energy, are no longer scarce, but produced in such supply that survival itself is no longer the defining problem of civilization. The roots of this idea go deep. In the 19th century, the economist John Stuart Mill imagined that once basic needs were secured, societies could devote themselves to the betterment of the human spirit. Later, Karl Marx argued that technology would one day liberate humanity from the burden of labor, allowing each person to hunt in the morning, fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, and criticize after dinner. His utopian vision was never realized in the 20th century, but the dream that machines could free us from toil has lingered. In our own time, futurists such as Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler argued in their book Abundance, "The future is better than you think that exponential technologies, solar power, biotechnology, robotics, and artificial intelligence could make scarcity itself obsolete." Ray Kurzweil, in The Singularity is Near, went further, predicting that accelerating innovation would make machines smarter than humans and capable of solving problems beyond our imagination. Science fiction has long offered pictures of such a world. In Star Trek, the replicator can synthesize food, clothing, and tools from raw energy. There is no hunger, no poverty, no want. The society of the Federation is not driven by money, but by exploration, art, and curiosity. This is perhaps the clearest cultural expression of a post-scarcity ideal. And yet, reality resists such purity. The 21st century has shown us that technology does not automatically erase inequality. The internet was once heralded as a tool that would democratize information for all. In practice, it has concentrated wealth into the hands of a few corporations and left billions offline. Medicine has advanced at extraordinary speed, but access remains divided by wealth and geography. The film Elysium painted a darker version of abundance, where orbiting elites enjoy miraculous healthcare and endless resources, while the majority live in poverty below. This tension is real. Abundance may not be shared equally. Without systems of fairness, abundance could become another form of exclusion. By 2100, humanity could live in a world where solar panels power entire cities at near zero cost, where food is grown in vertical farms with minimal land and water, and where diseases that haunted millennia are cured by gene editing. Yet, just as easily, it could be a world where these miracles remain the property of a minority, deepening the divide between privileged and forgotten. The future of abundance, then, is not only about technology. It is about politics, culture, and morality. Machines may give us the capacity for plenty, but it will be human choices that decide whether that plenty is shared. Abundance is both promise and warning. If the dream of abundance is one possible path for humanity, its shadow is the future of scarcity. Here, by 2100, instead of overcoming limits, we find ourselves trapped by them, our resources stretched thin, our environment unstable, our needs unmet. This fear is not new. In 1798, the economist Thomas Malthus warned in his essay on the principle of population that human populations grow faster than food supplies, and therefore famine and collapse were inevitable. His dire predictions were postponed by the agricultural revolutions of the 19th and 20th centuries. Mechanized farming, fertilizers, and genetically modified crops. But the anxiety he raised has never disappeared. In the mid-20th century, the Club of Rome's 1972 report limits to growth warned that unchecked industrial expansion could exhaust the Earth's resources and destabilize society within a century. Oil shocks in the 1970s reinforced the idea that modern civilization might run out of its most vital fuels. Today, climate change and ecological degradation echo these earlier warnings with new urgency. Science fiction has often explored this possibility. Films like Mad Max depict societies reduced to scavenging for water and gasoline in wastelands where law has collapsed. In The Road by Cormac McCarthy, humanity struggles to survive in a barren, ash-filled landscape. Even more speculative works, like Frank Herbert's Dune, show desert worlds where water is the most precious substance, rationed and hoarded, shaping entire cultures around scarcity. But the future of scarcity does not need to look like complete collapse. It might take more subtle forms: megacities struggling to provide clean air and safe water to their residents, regions where desertification or rising seas displace millions, or economies where wealth becomes so concentrated that for the majority, scarcity remains an everyday reality. We already see these pressures. By 2100, the global population may stabilize, but climate change could stress food systems and create new waves of scarcity. Crops may fail in regions that once thrived. Fresh water may grow scarce in places where billions live. Energy transitions could leave entire nations behind if they cannot afford the new infrastructures. The philosopher Hans Jonas, in his book The Imperative of Responsibility, argued that future ethics must focus on preventing harm to generations yet unborn. His warning fits here: if we fail to act responsibly in our own time, scarcity will be the legacy we hand forward. Scarcity is not only about physical limits, but about distribution and power. The Earth in 2100 could produce enough for everyone, yet billions might still lack food, medicine, or shelter if political systems fail to deliver them. The danger is not only that the planet cannot sustain us, but that we fail to sustain one another. In this scenario, the year 2100 may not be defined by collapse, but by unevenness, a world where some regions thrive while others remain trapped in shortage. Where abundance exists, but is not shared. Where survival once again becomes the defining task of life. Beyond scarcity lies a darker possibility: collapse. This vision imagines not just difficulty or inequality, but the outright unraveling of civilization as we know it. By 2100, some argue, humanity could face breakdowns so severe that global networks of trade, governance, and technology fragment, leaving behind a patchwork of ruined societies. Collapse is a theme as old as history. The Roman Empire, once thought eternal, fell into centuries of division. The great Maya cities, once thriving, were abandoned to the jungle. Historians like Joseph Tainter, in The Collapse of Complex Societies, have argued that civilizations tend to expand in complexity until their costs outweigh their benefits, after which decline becomes unavoidable. Others, like Jared Diamond, in Collapse: How Societies Choose to Fail or Succeed, emphasize ecological damage, political choices, and mismanagement as the key forces driving collapse. Science fiction has offered countless depictions of such futures. In Mad Max, society degenerates into warlords battling over fuel. In the Book of Eli, collapse leaves behind a desolate, violent world haunted by hunger and belief. Even more nuanced portrayals, like Emily St. John Mandel's Station 11, imagine communities of survivors piecing together fragments of culture after a global pandemic. The causes of collapse could be many: climate tipping points, nuclear war, runaway artificial intelligence, global pandemics, or cascading failures of fragile economic systems. Some imagine cyber collapse, where critical digital infrastructure falls to sabotage or decay, plunging societies back into disarray. Others fear ecological collapse, where the biosphere itself fails to support billions of people. It is important to note that collapse does not mean extinction. Humanity has survived countless crises, adapting in ways large and small. What collapse often means is a contraction, a step backward in complexity, a narrowing of horizons, a return to local survival. Some philosophers even argue this might bring renewal. Oswald Spengler, in The Decline of the West, described civilizations as organisms with natural life cycles, suggesting that collapse might be less catastrophe and more transformation. Yet collapse, if it comes in the 21st century, would be unlike those of the past. Modern civilization is uniquely global. Supply chains, energy systems, and communications are interwoven across continents. A breakdown in one region can ripple instantly worldwide. Where Rome fell slowly over centuries, a globalized collapse might unfold within years, or even months. By 2100, the collapse scenario could mean cities abandoned to rising seas, deserts spreading across continents, or population shrinking as birth rates fail to recover. It could also mean memory, people looking back on the early 21st century not as the beginning of abundance, but as the high point of a fragile age that could not last. Collapse is not inevitable. It is one possibility among many, but it remains the shadow in all our dreams of the future. To imagine abundance without acknowledging collapse would be to forget the lessons of history. Another vision of the year 2100 is not collapse, but control. Here the structures of society remain intact, perhaps even stronger than before, but freedom and individuality are diminished. Technology, instead of liberating people, becomes the tool of surveillance, discipline, and command. The fear of authoritarian futures is old. In 1949, George Orwell published 1984, imagining a world where Big Brother watches every citizen, rewriting truth itself to preserve power. Around the same time, Aldous Huxley's Brave New World presented a softer but equally chilling possibility, a society controlled not by violence, but by pleasure, distraction, and genetic design. Together, Orwell and Huxley became the twin prophets of control, one warning of tyranny through fear, the other of tyranny through comfort. Science fiction has returned to this theme again and again. In Gattaca, genetic screening creates a society where one's future is predetermined at birth. In Black Mirror, technology amplifies both surveillance and social control, from rating systems that determine status to artificial realities that trap the mind. In Equilibrium, emotions themselves are suppressed by daily doses of drugs, creating a rigid, efficient, but joyless world. The seeds of such futures already exist. In the 21st century, governments and corporations collect unprecedented amounts of data about their citizens and customers. Cameras watch city streets. Algorithms track habits, predict behavior, and shape choices. Shoshana Zuboff, in the age of surveillance capitalism, warned that entire economies are now built on monitoring and influencing human behavior. What begins as convenience, recommendations, personalized ads, predictive services, can slide easily into control. By 2100, authoritarian futures might not look like uniform armies marching under a dictator. They may look like seamless systems that optimize daily life while quietly narrowing freedom. Imagine cities where every action is logged by sensors, where credits replace cash and can be frozen at a keystroke, where virtual reality provides endless entertainment, while real power is exercised invisibly. Such a world may feel stable, even abundant, but at the cost of autonomy. Philosophers like Michel Foucault describe this shift as the disciplinary society, where control is less about punishment and more about constant observation. Power works not by crushing people, but by shaping their behavior until they police themselves. By 2100, the merging of artificial intelligence with governance could extend this principle to nearly every sphere of life. Some will argue that such control prevents collapse, that without centralized monitoring and management, chaos would win. Others will see it as the ultimate betrayal of human freedom. The authoritarian future is not purely dystopian. It may bring safety, efficiency, even abundance. But it is abundance tightly managed, where choice is permitted only within carefully drawn boundaries. In 2100, humanity may not be destroyed or starved, but it may no longer be free. Between the extremes of abundance, scarcity, collapse, and control lies another possibility: balance. By 2100, humanity may not achieve utopia, nor sink into catastrophe, but instead learn, slowly, painfully, to live within limits. This vision imagines a sustainable world, one shaped not by unchecked growth or domination, but by adaptation and restraint. The idea of balance has roots in philosophy as well as ecology. In the mid-20th century, thinkers like E.F. Schumacher, author of Small is Beautiful, argued that economies should focus not on endless expansion but on human well-being, local resilience, and harmony with nature. Later, Arne Naess, founder of the deep ecology movement, suggested that human beings must see themselves not above nature, but as part of a living system whose health determines their own survival. Science fiction has also hinted at this future. Ursula K. Le Guin's The Dispossessed portrayed a society built on voluntary simplicity, equality, and ecological responsibility. Films like Silent Running warned of what happens when balance is lost, but also envisioned humanity trying to preserve pieces of the natural world. Even Avatar, though fantastical, reflects the idea that a sustainable life depends on respecting ecological systems. In the 21st century, movements towards sustainability have already begun. Solar and wind energy are expanding. Cities experiment with green architecture and circular economies. Rewilding projects aim to restore lost ecosystems. Indigenous communities, long ignored by modern development, are increasingly recognized for their knowledge of sustainable land stewardship. These are small steps, but they reflect a growing awareness that survival may depend less on conquest and more on coexistence. By 2100, a balanced world might look like this: cities designed as ecosystems, where buildings produce their own energy and recycle their own water, agriculture that mimics natural cycles, producing food without exhausting soil or polluting rivers, economies that measure success not by growth, but by stability, equity, and resilience. Such a society would not eliminate hardship, but it could reduce the extremes that drive collapse and conflict. Balance does not mean stasis. Human beings will still explore, invent, and create. But balance means setting boundaries, using what can be replaced, preserving what cannot, and recognizing that Earth itself is finite. Philosophers like Hans Jonas argued that modern ethics must extend responsibility to future generations. By 2100, if humanity survives, this ethic of responsibility may finally become the foundation of civilization. Of course, balance is fragile. It requires political will, cultural change, and technological support. It may be the hardest path of all, because it demands patience and restraint rather than conquest or surrender. But if achieved, it could allow humanity to thrive not for a decade or a century, but for millennia. In this vision, the year 2100 is not a climax, but a turning point, the moment when humanity finally learns to live with the earth rather than against it. For as long as humans have looked up at the night sky, we have imagined leaving Earth behind. By 2100, one possible path is not only survival on this planet, but expansion beyond it, into the Moon, Mars, the asteroid belt, or even deeper into the solar system. This dream has roots in both science and imagination. In 1865, Jules Verne wrote From the Earth to the Moon, picturing a giant cannon that could propel humans into space. Later, Konstantin Tsiolkovsky, the Russian pioneer of astronautics, declared, "The Earth is the cradle of humanity, but one cannot live in the cradle forever." In the mid-20th century, visionaries like Wernher von Braun designed rockets not only to reach the Moon but to colonize Mars. Science fiction has kept this vision alive. In Kim Stanley Robinson's Mars trilogy, humans terraformed the Red Planet, turning it from barren desert to living world. Films like Interstellar imagine humanity leaving Earth entirely, seeking new homes among the stars. Even works like The Expanse portray a solar system divided among Earth, Mars, and the asteroid belt, showing not only the possibilities but also the tensions of expansion. The 21st century has already seen the first steps. Private companies launch rockets, plan lunar bases, and prepare missions to Mars. Satellites orbit every continent. Space stations act as laboratories in orbit. These are early signs of what could become, by 2100, a genuine multiplanetary civilization. The reasons for expansion are many. Some see it as insurance against collapse. If Earth fails, humanity survives elsewhere. Others see it as destiny, the next chapter of exploration, no different from crossing oceans or settling continents. Still others view it as opportunity, with asteroids containing metals worth trillions and solar energy available in endless supply. But expansion carries risks. Life beyond Earth will not be easy. Mars has thin air, toxic soil, and deadly radiation. The Moon is barren, cold, and without atmosphere. Even the nearest star is 4 light-years away, far beyond our current technology. Expansion could deepen inequality, with wealthy nations and corporations claiming space while others remain grounded. It could also replicate old conflicts on new frontiers. By 2100, expansion might look modest: outposts on the Moon, cities under domes on Mars, fleets mining asteroids for resources. Or it might be more radical: the beginnings of permanent human communities scattered across the solar system. In either case, it would change how humanity sees itself. For millennia, Earth has been the stage of all human history. Expansion would make Earth one world among many. As philosophers have suggested, this shift might shrink nationalism and enlarge identity. People no longer only as citizens of countries, but as members of a species that lives among worlds. The expansion future is neither purely utopian nor purely dystopian. It promises wonder, danger, wealth, and conflict. But it also promises perspective. Looking back from 2100, expansion could be remembered as the moment when humanity's story ceased to be planetary and became cosmic. The final vision of 2100 is perhaps the most radical: transformation. Instead of simply surviving, balancing, or expanding, humanity itself may change so profoundly that it becomes something new, post-human, no longer bound by the same limits that have defined our species for millennia. The roots of this idea stretch back to ancient myths. In Greek legend, mortals long for immortality, while gods embody powers beyond human reach. Philosophers like Nietzsche imagined the Übermensch, a figure who would surpass humanity's current form. In the modern age, the idea of transformation shifted from myth to technology. By the mid-20th century, Norbert Wiener, the founder of cybernetics, described the blending of human and machine. Later, Donna Haraway, in her Cyborg Manifesto, suggested that the boundaries between humans, animals, and technology were already dissolving. More recently, Transhumanist thinkers like Nick Bostrom have speculated that by the 21st century, humans could enhance themselves with genetic engineering, nanotechnology, and artificial intelligence, creating beings very different from us today. Science fiction has been a laboratory for these possibilities. In William Gibson's Neuromancer, humans plug directly into digital worlds. In Ghost in the Shell, consciousness merges with machines. In films like Her or Transcendence, artificial intelligence blurs the line between human and digital mind. The Wachowskis' The Matrix explored an even more unsettling question: what if reality itself becomes indistinguishable from simulation? By 2100, transformation might take many forms. Biological, humans genetically edited to resist disease, live longer, or even adapt to other planets. Mechanical, cyborgs enhanced with implants, prosthetics, or neural links that expand memory and perception. Digital, minds uploaded into computers, living in virtual worlds that are as real as the physical. Each of these paths challenges the very definition of what it means to be human. The philosopher Francis Fukuyama once called transhumanism the world's most dangerous idea, warning that altering human nature could destroy what makes us human. Others see it as the next logical step in evolution, self-directed, deliberate, and liberating. The debate remains unresolved. Transformation may also come not through design, but through necessity. A warming planet, new diseases, or space colonization might force humans to adapt their bodies and minds. In this way, transformation becomes survival. The risks are immense. Inequality could deepen if enhancements are available only to the wealthy. Identity could fracture if some remain human, while others become something else. Even continuity itself is questioned. If a human mind is copied into a machine, is it still the same person, or merely a reflection? By 2100, humanity may look back at itself and see not one species, but many, some biological, some hybrid, some digital. The boundaries that once seemed firm may dissolve. And just as Homo sapiens once looked back on Neanderthals, our descendants may look back on us, the original humans, as the beginning of something larger. Transformation is the most speculative of futures, yet also the one most deeply embedded in our imagination. For centuries, humans have dreamed of becoming more than they are. By 2100, that dream may finally come true, and the age of humanity, as we know it, may end.